Hey guys, it's me again. You ready for another day of science? Well, I've got my materials all ready and I'm ready to go. Are you ready to go? Are you sure? Alright, 3, 2, 1, here we go. Alright, obviously today we're learning about weathering, erosion, and deposition. Well, I found a really good way to describe them in a minute or less. So I'm going to show you that and then we're going to look at some other things. So, let's check that out first. Ready? It's fun!
Weathering is a destructive force. Weathering breaks large pieces of rock into smaller pieces of rock called sediment. The sediments are then scraped away in a process called erosion. The agents of erosion are water, wind, ice, and gravity. The sediments are then dumped off in a process called deposition. Weathering, erosion, deposition. Ouch.
There you have it, kiddos. That's weathering, erosion, and deposition in 1 minute or less. Now I'm going to go a little more in depth to explain it for you. So pay close attention and take notes if you want. Weathering, as you saw, was where the sediment gets broken apart. And it's all these little pieces of pebbles and rocks and soils and all kinds of stuff that's out in nature and the earth, and it just completely gets broken down. And as it breaks down, it comes even smaller pieces called sediment. And it takes a really, 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 really long time for this to happen. This is why we call these slow processes. They take forever. And sometimes the weathering just completely wears away a rock next to nothing. And it can make water dirty. It can do all kinds of things. I'm going to show you an example of that. For instance, right here I have my handy dandy bottle of water and I've got some pebbles in the bottom. So I'm going to and check that out. The water is not very clear anymore, is it? Look at that. Because the sediment has come off of the rocks. And it keeps making the water dirty because all that sediment's coming loose, and eventually those pebbles are going to wear away to nothing. There's not going to be anything left. Absolutely nothing. Nothing. Nothing will be left after it weathers away into next to nothing. Little pieces of sediment over forever and ever and ever, and it takes forever. Slow change. Sediment. Created from weathering. Weathering. So sometimes you'll see some big cracks or even little cracks in the rock, and it's proving that there's been some weathering taking place. Because the ice and the water and the wind and the gravity and the temperature, it all just makes it break down and fall apart. It breaks me down and falls completely apart. That's what the rocks are really saying. And then there's an example of it. Weathering, breaking it down. And then there's erosion. Erosion occurs when those rocks and soil and sand and sediment are carried away. So not only did it break down, it took it away, carried it away, completely gone, forever gone. When water and ice are usually the things that carry all that sediment away and erode it away. And you're going to see some pretty big examples of erosion in a few minutes. Check that out. Canyons, Yep, those are usually created from rivers. That river used to be way up here at the top of these canyons. But the rivers eroded it down all the way down here and created a canyon. Didn't happen overnight. Took a really long time. There's some examples from the wind. And here's some examples from the ice. And then there's deposition. Deposition we're going to learn more about later. But basically what you need to know is that when it gets carried away and it finally gets dropped off, the dropping off is the deposition. Yeah, it's the deposition. Deposition is when it gets dropped off. So it breaks down and weathers away. And then it gets carried off and kidnapped and eroded away. And then they just drop it off like a bag of rocks. Just drop it off. So when the wind stops blowing or the water stops moving or the ice stops moving, it just drops all that sediment and soil off like it was nothing. Just like a bag of rocks. Drops it off. Leaves it there. And it has to, the sand and soil and rocks have to just get a new home right there. Now, check out this class and their idea of erosion and deposition and weathering. Yeah, that's erosion.
Most landscapes show the obvious evidence of erosion. Erosion is responsible for the continual reshaping of the Earth's surface, like the creation of hills and valleys and lakes. What is erosion, you ask?
Well, that's way too much information for you. Basically, it's when it gets carried away.
Erosion is defined as the process by which surface materials like soil are worn away and moved to a different place. When wind, water, gravity, and glaciers drop the sediments in a new place, it is called deposition.
So erosion is, it gets carried away, and deposition is when it's dropped off. There's an example of erosion. Weathering is actually the first one that happens because it has to break it down. See all those rocks crumbling down the hills? That's the weathering. Oh, here's your causes. This is amazing. Totally amazing. 700,000 tons of soil. That's a lot of really sad soil because it got broken down. Yep. Right there's erosion for you. And when it gets dropped off at the bottom, it's going to be deposition.
What are some causes of soil erosion? Overgrazing the grass, forest harvestation, and agriculture cultivation, or when farmers till their fields.
So basically what she said is when we take away too much of the soil, it erodes it away and it causes the soil to be able to just taken away and carried away. It weathers, it breaks down, and then it gets carried away and kidnapped and eroded away, and then it gets dropped off in a brand new location and left all alone. Deposition. So there you have it. That's weathering, erosion, and deposition. Study hard.